What's up, everybody? You got Blue Jay here bringing you episode 10 of the Clown Fiesta podcast. You'll notice this week that JNT is away. He is traveling all over the damn continent. He is, I'm not even exaggerating. He's West Coast, and then he's in Ontario, then he's down in Texas. He's all over the place. So he's going to be missing for just this week. We're going to try and get him back next week, and hopefully everything's right back on schedule next week. I'm going to do the best I can to give you guys a little solo show today, and I appreciate your patience, and hopefully we get as much interactions in the chat and in the comment section for those listening. So thank you, everyone, for your patience, and without further ado, let's get right into the first topic. So, lots went on this week for the LCS. One of the biggest things is Weldon and Ssong are let go from CLG. So CLG had to let go of their coaching staff. Well, not had to let go. They chose to let go of their coaching staff this week. And let's be honest, this was something we saw coming for quite some time now. It was only a matter of time. However, it didn't seem like Weldon was very aware. Weldon actually ended up tweeting out, he said, and I'm quoting, "So I am suddenly unemployed in LA with a family of 6 after taking a pay cut plus moving debt to come work at CLG. Anybody need end of season help? Looking for instant intermittent work." And yeah, thank you, Andrew, for the link in the live chat there. Also, links will be in the description on the YouTube and VOD. So first thought is I do feel bad for Weldon. You don't wish anyone to be fired from their job. However, this was something that definitely needed to happen. If you've watched CLG at all this split, you've known that this is not a team that's been looking good, and you need a big time turnaround for your organization. And I think that starts with the coach. You see that in traditional sports, and you're going to see that in esports as well. Now, like I said, I feel bad for him. I feel bad that he's got a family of 6 living in LA. It's expensive. However, I don't like him playing the victim on this at all. Like, you know, when you take a coaching job in any professional sport or any competitive field, your job is never secure. Your team was bad, you were bad. This is not like, that's the other thing too. He has the word suddenly in there. Suddenly? This is not sudden. Everyone was waiting for this to happen, and immediately, as soon as the season was over, the announcement was put out that the coaching staff was being let go. Not a big surprise here. This was very much long overdue, and although I'm sad for Weldon, I don't wish, any ill on him at all. Let's be honest. Probably wasn't that great of a coach. The team was really struggling, and it wasn't just summer split, it was spring split as well, and change needed to happen. I don't think this that we see when it comes to Weldon and Ssong being moved out. I think that we might see more moves in CLG. I freaking hope so. But this is all they have for the time being. And you got to start wondering what's next for this team. So you got to wonder which players are going to go. Like I said, if players are going to go, which ones are going. And I think a lot of CLG fans wouldn't be too disappointed to see everybody go. This is a team that is in total need of a total rehaul and or overhaul, pardon me. And yeah, I think it's time. I wouldn't be surprised to see the GM go next. Now, they haven't announced that yet, and that's all just speculation. But to me, this was a team that needed to make moves in the offseason, and they didn't. And now you could always say, and this is valid, by the way, you could always say that making moves in this particular offseason with COVID happening and people not being able to move around as much, it would have been a lot more difficult for them to get an import, nearly impossible, let's say. So maybe their options were very limited, and so that to me is fair. However, they came in with the mentality that this team was still a good team and they expected to win and that they were going to beat C9, and to me that is just total lack of understanding of how strong/weak your team is. And so I think that the GM should be the next to go as well. A lot of people, I keep hearing people saying CLG should sell their LCS spot. Now, there's a lot of people that are saying, no, absolutely not. There's no reason for them. I don't think the answer is obvious. I think that there are definitely some CLG fans that would like to see the spot sold just because they're tired of seeing just lackluster performances year in, year out. This team it's been so long since they've been good, and it doesn't seem like they're all that willing to spend a lot of money on new players or on anything for that matter. Their content is very lackluster. It doesn't seem like they're really doing much with their LCS spot, which is why a lot of people are saying, look, if you're not going to do anything with your LCS spot, there's a lot of other orgs that would like to be in the LCS. Sell your spot, make back some of the money that you've lost, and call it a day. I don't know if I'm at that point yet, but I would be lying if I said it didn't cross my mind. So we're gonna have to wait and see what Madison Square Garden chooses to do with CLG. We know MSG has money. It just doesn't seem like they want to budget it into CLG all that much. That's a very good question. So for those just listening, in the live chat, there's a question that says, any particular org that you would like to buy that spot? So there are a lot of esports orgs that could definitely take that spot. I don't know if there's any particular one that I absolutely want. I didn't hate Optic Gaming when they were in the LCS, but they were another org that really didn't do much with it either. So Optic is out. There used to be NRG back in the day. They didn't really do much either. They're out. There's so many different orgs. I don't necessarily have one in mind, but I promise you that if there's one esport that organizations want to be involved in, it has to be League of Legends. It's still the world's biggest esport, and there's no signs of that falling off anytime soon. So really good question. Thank you for that in the live chat. That's all I have on CLG for now. Would love to know everybody else's thoughts. Please leave some of that in the comments. Moving on to our next topic. It seems like we might have Sneaky returning to the LCS in 2021. A recent interview with Travis Gafford is suggesting that he plans on playing pro next year. So that makes me want to ask a bunch of different questions. First off, should we be concerned with his skill level? He hasn't been playing for quite some time now. It's been about, well, let's see, spring and summer split now. It's been 8 months since then, but also it's probably been since about Worlds, honestly, that he's actually gone, full 100%. So it's been some time since he's played. Now let's be fair here, because Sneaky has been playing. He's been streaming a lot, for that matter, but he's been streaming a lot of League of Legends. However, not all League of Legends. His content has been around playing a huge variety of different games. So it's not like he's going full tryhard when it comes to League of Legends, but it's not like he's absent of the esport either. And so you got to wonder if it's going to cause a need for tryouts, maybe. Maybe Sneaky's going to have to try out and earn a spot back in the LCS. Maybe he only gets offered an academy contract if he's not that great anymore, which I don't know how likely that is. There's a ton of different scenarios there. And another comment in the chat about whether Sneaky would get recruited just because of his name. And for me, the answer is absolutely yes, because you could, like I just said, sign him to an academy contract. Now, I don't think that that's going to happen. I just want to throw that out there. While I do think that tryouts are a possibility, an academy contract is a possibility, I don't think that's likely. I think Sneaky is still good enough to play in this league, and I think he's going to be able to prove that with not too much effort. I think he was a great AD carry when he was still playing in the league. I think he was just, once he got replaced on Cloud9, he was thinking, I'll just take a small break and I'll get back in. And by the way, we've seen this before in the LCS. Doublelift did the same thing. Now, I don't believe Doublelift took that long of a break. If my memory serves me right, I think it was just one split. Somebody could maybe correct me on that if I'm wrong. However, we saw Doublelift take a break, and it didn't look like he had any problems getting back into it. He came back and was great. So we'll see what things look like for Sneaky. Another thing that I've heard a lot of fans asking for is the Sneaky and Meteos duo coming back. And I'm not going to lie, I would love to see it. Do I think it's a good idea? Not really. Meteos, as much as I love him, he was one of the worst performing junglers this split. He ended up getting benched. Not only did he end up getting benched, but he ended up getting benched for Contracts, who has been playing in Academy for quite some time. Now, I don't think Contracts is awful, but he's definitely not a top-tier jungler, so I think that goes to speak just to how bad Meteos was looking this split. If Sneaky and Meteos were to come together, I have no idea what team that would be on. Maybe a team like CLG that we just talked about, who's looking for a total overhaul, would look to get the Sneaky Meteos thing going. However, I don't know how much they're willing to spend. But I would love to know people's thoughts on where they think Sneaky is going. I'm going to give some thoughts of my own on which teams I think are unlikely and which teams I think have a pretty good chance. So, first off, I'll start off with the teams that I think are unlikely. So, first off, Cloud9. They replaced him literally this year. I don't see any reason for them to go back, especially when you have an 80 carry that's performing really well. I don't think maybe for the fandom, I suppose, but even still, I don't see it happening. TSM, they have double lift. They're more than happy with their 80 carry. I don't see that happening. Golden Guardians, that's a team that does not spend a lot of money, and Sneaky's going to cost a lot of money. Not to mention, they have a great 80 carry right now. FBI is at the top of the league in stats, just across pretty much all laning stats, so I don't see that being likely. Dignitas has Johnson. I don't think that's going to happen. Johnson's just a young player, young talent who's up and coming. He's looked great this split on a bad team even. So I don't think that's going to happen there. 100 Thieves, I don't see that happening. Although I do see 100 Thieves being interested. Not so much because they want to replace Cody's son necessarily, but I think that 100 Thieves has come under a little bit of fire lately from fans for just having weak performances. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And so, anyways, the point is that a lot of 100 Thieves fans are looking for change, and so many people just love Sneaky. But I'd say it's unlikely because I don't think Sneaky's going to want to go and play for a team that doesn't have a support that's, a good support at the moment. Right now, they have Poom playing in LCS. They let go of Stunt. I think that if 100 Thieves was to get Sneaky, they would need a little bit more help and a little bit more vision as to who else is going to be on the team before they get him. And then the last team that I think is unlikely is Team Liquid. This team is 15-3 right now. Don't get me wrong, they haven't looked perfect this split, but they've looked pretty darn good. I don't think there's any need to change out your 80 carry. Tacticals looked fine, and I don't think that they'll be after Sneaky. Next up, I want to go into the teams that do have a chance. So I'm going to start off with Evil Genius. So Evil Geniuses, they've shown that they're willing to spend in the past. They just did this at the start of the 2020 season. They went and bought a bunch of players from Cloud9, and if I remember correctly, I think they spent about $2 million just buying out the contracts from Kumo, Svenskeren, Zazel, and I think it was Deathly, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody could correct me on that if I'm wrong. But the point is, they bought a bunch of players out from Cloud9. They are willing to spend. Now, you might wonder, like, would they ever replace Bang? I don't think that that's incredibly likely, but I do want to talk about why it's possible. So, like I said, they're willing to spend. But two, there's a team. They already have a lot of synergy with some of those players on that team. There are a bunch of ex-Cloud9 players that Sneaky has played with before. There's been a bunch of questions about team morale this split. There's speculation that Hooney was only brought in to make Bang happy. Now, that's complete speculation, but it is something that it was a rumor that was going around. And whenever you have a player, if you have to bring in another player just to make the original player happy, I don't know if that's something you really want on your team. Now, again, I just want to reiterate that is speculation. And also, they've had import trouble. This split, they're showing already what happens when you don't have enough import slots to field the team you want to. So maybe Sneaky could help out there because he is a resident. Now, I do also want to reiterate that EG is going to have Hooney for next year, and next year Hooney will no longer take up an import slot. So I don't think that EG is incredibly likely, but there are a couple of reasons to entertain the idea, at least. Next up, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, CLG. CLG, they need to overhaul that team, and what a good place to start with Sneaky. If you have Sneaky on your team, that's already a good start. He's a very well-respected player in the league. That is reason for other players to perhaps want to come to your team. Or you would maybe have to sign other players, and then maybe Sneaky would want to join that team. So it's going to be really tough for CLG management to convince Sneaky to come to the team. Another thing that I mentioned before is that they haven't really shown the willingness to spend a lot of money, MSG for that matter, the owners of CLG. So also not incredibly likely, but definitely a possibility because they're a team that's looking to completely revamp their roster and come out with something new for next season. I think their biggest issue is who wants to play for CLG right now. That's the biggest issue. I mentioned before how I think that they need to replace their GM. If they have a new GM and new coaching staff, maybe it's a totally new org in someone's eyes, and maybe they're more willing to play for that org. Next up that I think is possible, Immortals. Another team that they need another bot lane. I love Apollo, I love Hakuho, but as per usual, these are two players that are usually and this split they continue to just perform at the bottom of the rankings there. They're pretty much at the bottom in the normal in the numbers of their laning statistics. I don't think that they've been awful, for the record. I don't think they've been terrible, but they haven't been great. And if you're looking to put up some wins, which Immortals should definitely do, they've only got 4 wins this split, to their 14 losses. I think that this team's going to be looking for another bot lane. I don't know what their budget situation is like. They haven't been in the league long enough to really have an informed, or for me to have an informed opinion on how they plan to budget and how much they plan to spend and so on and so forth. But if they are looking to spend, I think a great place to start would be with Sneaky. Soaz and Alorum could be their top lane. They could probably alternate between one of them. And then you could have Xmithy. Maybe Pobelter wants to go back and play with Xmithy. So maybe the possible lineup would be either Soaz or Alorum, Xmithy, Pobelter, Sneaky, of course, if this scenario is true. And then maybe Diamond. He's another support that we keep talking about in Academy that could use some playtime at the LCS level. But again, all speculation again. And I think that they're going to have to compete with better offers from other teams, though. So maybe not all that likely either. The last team, and this is the team that I think is the most likely, is FlyQuest. And the reason I go with FlyQuest is because we've known for some time now that they've needed another AD carry. They've already benched Wild Turtle this year. That was not long ago. And I know that there's been a lot of interviews with people saying, like, how's it been, having Wild Turtle back? And all the players on FlyQuest are saying, like, yeah, it's great. He's motivated again. However, I'm not sold on that. I think the reason he's back in LCS is more so because MASH hasn't been performing. MASH was not very good when he was at the LCS level. He had a week or two where he looked okay, but for the most part, he wasn't looking too good, and I think that was the real reason why Wild Turtle made it back to the LCS level. Another thing is this is a company and an organization that has definitely shown they're looking to make a brand push. They've done a great job in 2020 with their Tree Quest and now their Sea Quest. FlyQuest is doing a really good job to make a brand push, and what better way to do that with Sneaky? I don't see a better way. You need a new AD carry. He's a great AD carry that gives your brand a little bit more oomph. So I think that would be a great signing. And if Sneaky turns out to be not that great, again, that's where you would go back and forth from Academy. He's already shown that he can do that. And I wonder what this is something that we'll have to revisit later on in the year, probably in the offseason, because I think if FlyQuest goes to Worlds, now that is still a very big if. We have all of playoffs to go through, but right now they're the third best team in NA as far as standings is concerned. So there's a very real chance that they go to Worlds, and if they go to Worlds and Wild Turtle is just the obvious sore thumb sticking out there, that would be more extra incentive for this team to push for another AD carry being Sneaky. So lots of speculation on this one. I can't wait to see what happens, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the chat and in the comments section. Please let me know where you guys think Sneaky is going. This is something I love, and I can't wait to see Sneaky back in the LCS. All right, and so next up, we're going to move on to just a little bit of a recap and talk about each team going into the playoffs. So first off, we have to say goodbye to Immortals and CLG for this year. We have our playoff teams. It is 8 teams, and it is every team that I did not mention. It's just Immortals and CLG that didn't make it this time around. Immortals, let's talk about them real quick. So this is a team that showed some promise, despite the fact that they were a bottom tier team. They had an awful start to the season, and they ended up just completely swapping their rosters. The Academy roster got bumped up, and they were now the LCS roster. The original LCS roster, they got bumped down and went to Academy. And then all of management was scrapped. The GM was scrapped. The coach was scrapped. I don't know if all of the coaching staff was let go, but I do know that there was a lot of changes for the coaching. And we got to see Alorum come back to the LCS. We hadn't seen much of him before, and we got to see Insanity play a lot of games too. So we learned a fair bit about these guys. I'm not sure if it was enough for them to stay in the LCS, but I think that their performances were definitely respectable coming from Academy and playing in the LCS. I think that what we learned from this roster is that just about in every role, these are players that are bottom tier LCS players and top tier Academy players. So it's really hard to see where they belong. Outside of Xmithy, of course, who's been one of North America's best junglers for some time now. After that, like I said, we got to say goodbye to CLG. I don't want to talk too much about CLG. They had a good start, 4-2. Most people weren't convinced, including myself. They ended up, after the 4-2 start, they went 1-12, counting their tiebreaker game, and that was to finish 5-14 on the split. Such a terrible back half of the split. For some reason, management waited until the very last week to make a roster move. Now, I do want to preface this because they did swap out Ruin for one. I don't know if it was one game or I think it was a weekend to put in Deus, but they did announce that was just due to Ruin facing some issues of burnout. So I don't really consider that to be a benching or a roster swap necessarily. The only real roster swap that they did was they benched Pobelter and Wiggly on the very last week when they're fighting for a playoff spot. I don't really understand that one. And then they ended up putting Pobelter back in for the very last game, the tiebreaker game. I don't really understand. We know the coaches are gone. We think the players are going to be gone. Maybe the GM's going to be gone. But what we do know is that CLG for the rest of the season is gone. Next up, I want to talk about playoffs now. Now let's jump into playoffs. We're going to pull up a playoff bracket because it is quite... it's a little bit messy, so to speak. For those that are listening, I guess you'll just have to try to figure it out by hearing me talk, or you can go and check out the bracket online. But we have TL and Cloud9 taking the first and second spot respectively, and so they are going to get a bye in the first round. And then our first series are going to be between FlyQuest, NEG, and TSM and Golden Guardians. Those series are going to be Thursday and Friday of this week at 4 p.m. And then in the losers bracket, we have Dignitas and 100 Thieves waiting to play the opponents, waiting to play the losers of the FlyQuest, EG, and TSM Golden Guardians series. So kind of difficult to keep up with the new bracket system. It is very different. However, I think it's pretty good. I originally wasn't too happy with this bracket system, but it's grown on me a little bit, and I am interested to see what this playoff bracket looks like. I think we're going to have the most competitive playoffs we've ever seen in the LCS. So this is the first time that there's 5 different teams that could take the summer split, and I don't think people would be too surprised if either of those 5 teams, those 5 teams being Cloud9, TL, FlyQuest, TSM, or Golden Guardians. Without further ado, though, I do want to talk about TL first. So, as I mentioned, they locked the first seed, and right now they are looking like the best team in the LCS. So they looked pretty good this weekend. A few mistakes in the TSM game, but nothing major. It was overall a pretty controlled game, and they looked pretty good. And I think they're looking better than every other LCS team at the moment. I think that this past weekend definitely secured the spot for Core JJ as far as the MVP is concerned. A lot of talks going into this past weekend was, is it going to be Doublelift or is it going to be Core JJ? And basically the winner of that game would probably solidify the MVP vote. to me, it's not like Bjergsen had an awful game, and it's not like Core JJ had an amazing game, but it was a very slow game, and there wasn't that much happening, despite the fact that it was still a very hyped game. It was such a weird game, really weird to explain, but nonetheless, I think Core JJ is the front runner for the MVP vote. I'll be pretty surprised if anyone else gets it. Maybe Blabber, but again, I think it's going to be Core JJ. That game against TSM, there was no major outplay or anything like that. The style that they played was very TL-esque, so to speak. It was very slow, very methodical. And they ultimately came out on top. They punished TSM for not checking the Baron, and well, now they got the first seed. They locked that in. The first TL game, they're going to have to wait to play the winner of either FlyQuest EG or TSM Golden Guardians. They get to choose their opponent. So, in my opinion, I think that they're going to choose to avoid FlyQuest the most, and then I think they're going to choose to avoid TSM the most, if that's their only option. So, let's say hypothetically FlyQuest wins. I think that they'll choose either TSM or Golden Guardians. If EG wins, I think they'll just play against EG, regardless of what the other team is. Oh, right. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about why I don't think that they're too afraid of TSM, actually, I think they would choose to play TSM over FlyQuest, is just recently there was an interview with Jensen where Jensen said he doesn't think TSM's that good. He straight up just said, I don't think they're that good of a team, and I think that Twitter and Reddit and all that stuff is just overrating this team. So a little bit interesting. I am interested to see a TL and TSM series, but I don't know if we're going to get it, seeing as TL gets to choose their opponents. But that would be really interesting. Next up, let's move over to Cloud9, the other team with a bye. So Cloud9, they locked in second seed, and so obviously they are, but they don't get to choose their opponents. They're left with whatever team Team Liquid doesn't want to play. This past weekend, they looked okay. They didn't look amazing, but they still got the 2-0. But let's remember, they were playing two bottom-tier teams. They're playing Dignitas and CLG. I don't think Dignitas is that bad, but regardless, definitely a team that Cloud9 should beat. Unfortunately, I do think Blabber's out of the MVP running. There's lots for this team to clean up, and to me, the biggest thing still goes back to draft. This team has made a lot of mistakes in-game, but their drafting I think they've made mistakes in almost all of their drafts as of late, which I don't know what's going on with their drafting. Some of the mistakes seem very obvious to me, such as like picking their top laner blind, that kind of stuff. But they have lots of time, and they have lots of skill to be the team to fix all of this stuff. And so I would not be surprised to see Cloud9 suddenly get back to their spring form or first half of summer split form. And I actually still think that they're the favorite. Yes, I know I'm wearing a Cloud9 jersey right now, so my bias is quite literally on my sleeve. I still think that this is the best team going into playoffs. I'll win the summer split. Feel free to flame if you think I'm being a little too generous to the Cloud9 team. I'll take the flame, no problem, if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think they're the best. And with that, I do want to move on to our first matchup now. We got TSM versus Golden Guardians. Just to be specific and to remind everyone, this game, as you see on your screen if you're watching live or on YouTube, this game is August 13th. This is going to be at 4 p.m. EST. That's right. That's a Thursday, everybody. So the reason why I'm really emphasizing this is because obviously most games are not played on Thursdays. We don't normally see that out of the LCS. And to be frank, they didn't really do a good job of promoting the not so much promoting, but just letting people know when these games were going to be played. I only saw one announcement at the end of the broadcast on Sunday. So not a lot of notice considering that they're playing on Thursday. But yes, again, everyone know Thursday is the first game, 4 p.m. EST, 1 p.m. PST. That's going to be TSM versus Golden Guardians. So let's talk a little bit about TSM because I think they've looked a lot better as of late. So they're going to be going up against Golden Guardians. More specifically, I think that TSM looked pretty good against TL this past weekend and Golden Guardians. So both of their games, they looked pretty good. Um, I really did like the Yuumi Lucian pick bot lane. And they played that along with Bjergsen's LeBlanc. I thought it was pretty good. The only thing that I don't like about it, and I'm not blaming them for this, but the only thing that I don't like about it is that they've kind of showed their hand, so to speak. This is not. We haven't seen a lot of Lucian or any Lucian for that matter in the bot lane. I'm not. I don't think, anyways. Doublelift, we know that he is a Lucian player. He's played lots of Lucian. He's looked good on it. He's performed in the playoffs really well with the Lucian pick. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back. But I don't know if they're going to be able to get these picks now that they've shown what they can do with it. Specifically against Golden Guardians, they drafted this, and now they're going up against Golden Guardians. So I don't think that they're going to be able to pull off that comp again. Who knows? Maybe they do. They certainly looked good with it. The reason why, I am, I guess I am optimistic for TSM because they've looked so good as of late. However, the reason I'm not completely sold on this team is because they still, despite the 12-6 season they had, so 12-6, very respectable. There was a lot of their wins where they didn't look that good. And I've said this before, and I've said it about many teams. We said it about CLG. We said the same thing about Team Liquid. Well, the same is true for TSM. Both games, they struggled a little bit, more so in the first one, but in both games, they struggled a little bit to beat CLG this split. And CLG was just hands down the worst team in the league, in my opinion. I thought that they looked awful, even in their wins. I don't know how they managed to get them, but they looked terrible. And so if you're struggling to beat this team twice, that's a little bit worrisome for me. So that's the reason why I'm not completely sold on this team. However, the last couple of weeks, they have looked pretty damn good. So TSM is definitely a team to be feared. They always get that kind of playoff buff with Bjergsen and Doublelift. These are veterans that have played so many damn playoff games, and they show up. I think their win conditions are, well, first one is definitely Bjergsen. This is a guy that has shown he can 1v9, and I honestly think that should be the game plan. Get a carry in Bjergsen's hands, get him on the Akali. We've seen people start to pick that up. Get him on the LeBlanc. He's a great LeBlanc player, and let him do his thing. Let him 1v9. Another thing that I think is very crucial to this series is to get Broken Blade a good lane. He has looked a little bit lackluster this split. However, when you give him the counter matchup, he does perform with it. Just most times he's been playing a bunch of different stuff, and to be honest, he hasn't looked good on a lot of his picks this split. But when he does get the counter matchup, that's when he's been able to perform. And so I think if you're if you're TSM, this is a draft where you need to get Bjergsen on 1v9 champion, get Broken Blade a good matchup. Everything else, I think that you can do just fine. I don't think that Spica's jungle champion pool will be pinched too much. I think that your bot lane can play just about anything, even if the champion pool is pinched in the banning phase. So that's definitely where I think TSM will need to focus if they want to get a win in this series. And God, is the draft, like, drafting is important in any series, right? But this one specifically, this is a really, really important drafting series, I think. When we hop over to the Golden Guardians side, they had a pretty poor performance last week. They went 0-2, and I actually had them going 2-0, but they managed to lose both of those games. And I just want to say that I think we've seen too much good from this team as of late to think that they're all of a sudden just going to flop. They had 2 poor games last week, but everything leading up to last week, they were looking good. And I don't mean just good. They were looking great. Like, this was a team that we thought we saw a brand new Golden Guardians. Everyone was saying, including myself, this was the first split that they were going to finish above 500. And then they went 0-2 and they finished 9-9. But you got FBI and Huhi who are looking great. I think that is the perfect bot lane to go up and try to hold down Doublelift and Treats. If you want to win a playoff series against TSM, you're going to have to hold back Doublelift. And this bot lane, like I said earlier, they've looked so good in the laning phase. They're top of the list in most laning stats. So I think that they won't have a problem with the bot lane. However, I actually give this team the advantage just because I think they have advantages in all of the lanes except for the mid lane. I think Haunter has been better than Broken Blade. I think Closer has been better than Spica. Obviously, Bjergsen, I've said, is better than Damonte. But then the bot lane, Doublelift has been good this split. Don't get me wrong. He has had a bounce back split. However, Golden Guardian's bot lane has just been better. And I can't believe I'm saying this because we've been so hard on Huhi in the past. But he's looked great at support. Specifically on set, he's looked fantastic. I think that their keys to winning this series are making sure that you don't give the counter pick over to Broken Blade. I mentioned before how like TSM, if they want to win, they got to get Bjergsen on 1v9 and they need a good lane matchup for Broken Blade. I think that if your Golden Guardians don't give that pick over that counter matchup for Broken Blade to let him shine. Hauntzer has a very wide champion pool. You should be able to play just about anything. That could be either the counter to what Broken Blade plays, or if you're picking blind, then you have to pick something safe, and Hauntzer's got a large champion pool. He'll be able to do that just fine. As far as not giving Bjergsen the 1v9 champion, that's something that's really difficult to do. Like, that should be the goal. Try to ban out that LeBlanc if you can. Try to ban out the Akali if you can. But you only have so many bans, and you can't completely limit Bjergsen. So I think that what you need to do is just give Damonte something that he's comfortable on and just make sure that he doesn't allow Bjergsen to take over the game. I do also expect to see Damonte playing the Lissandra in this series if Bjergsen does get the LeBlanc, because Damonte really does like to play into the LeBlanc. It's something he's picked many times. If the other team picks the LeBlanc blind, he'll just follow it up with a Lissandra. He usually loses that lane because you're supposed to. But later on, it's great. The LeBlanc has a hard time engaging on the Syndra. You just pop your W as Lissandra, and you just lock down the LeBlanc. So Damonte's always shown, or definitely as of late, this split has shown that he's willing to play just about anything for the success of the team. And so I think that's what we're going to see in this series. This series is going to be so good. I am really excited for this series. I could see this series going any way. I could see it going 3-0 in the favor of either team, and I could see it going 3-2 in the favor of either team. So I just want to put out that JNT did send me his predictions for this series. He's got TSM taking it 3-1. I, however, have Golden Guardians taking it, and I don't know if that's part of me talking with my heart here because I want to see them doing so good. But I think this series is going to be great. I do think it could go either way. I got Golden Guardians going 3-2 in the series. But yeah, this one should be great. Again, I'm going to say it 1,000 times. August 13th, that's a Thursday. That's at 4 p.m. This series. This is definitely one that you do not want to miss. Moving on, we got FlyQuest and Evil Geniuses. This is another series that I'm incredibly excited for. I guess it doesn't really take much for me to be excited about an LCS playoff series. However, we got FlyQuest coming in hot on this one. And so I think that they're the definite favorites in this one. They're on a 6-game win streak. They haven't lost in quite some time. PoE did lead the league in kills, I believe. I think it was something like 83 kills or something like that in 18 games. So really good for him. I'm pretty sure he led the league. Someone could let me know in the comments section if I'm wrong, if they want to look that one up. Santorin was also leading the league in first blood percentage. And now this one is a little bit more impressive to me because you've got a first blood percentage of 61% from Santorin. That is unbelievable. And for those that wonder, like, what does that stat really mean? For context, the next player behind him had a first blood rate of 50%, and that's Contracts, by the way. And Contracts only played 12 games, so he only played 2/3 of the split. And it's there, and yet he was still only 50% first blood. Everybody else in the league is below 50% for first blood percentage, and Santorin's sitting there at 61%. This is a guy that I think should have definitely been in the MVP conversations, but as of late, it seems like it's turned into a Bjergsen or Core JJ topic. So, well, I guess what can you do about that? But regardless, this is one of the main reasons this team is looking so good. And so lots of credit to Santorin there. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first all-pro jungler. Either that or second. I would be very surprised to see him fall down to the 3rd spot. This team, the way I see them winning this series is honestly the way they win every other game. This team is just the good old-fashioned way of winning, the way I like to call it. They win early, and they win they win early with Santorin getting the first blood all the time, and then they turn that into vision control, and then they turn that vision control into a solid engage from Ignar usually, or Santorin, but they always manage to get control over the Baron area or the Dragon area. They have full vision, and the other teams they're always looking to get some vision, try to get in there, and they end up face checking and taking a bad fight, and then that's how FlyQuest ends up just snowballing the game. So they just win a classic League of Legends game just the way you would expect a normal game to go, and that's why I think this team is definitely one to be feared. They've looked very good and they've looked very clean in their games. I think another way that they can win this series is to punish Huni. Huni has been a guy who's played aggressive pretty much all of his career. We know what to expect out of Huni. He's going to play aggressive. I won't be surprised if Santorin is ganking top lane very early in this game to get that initial advantage and then turn that into some other objectives on the map. However, I do want to talk a little bit about Evil Geniuses and what they can do to win. I want to start off with EG by saying that people should not sleep on this team, okay? They did not have the greatest showing this past weekend. They got absolutely stomped by 100 Thieves. However, I do think that game was a fluke. I think that, first of all, very bad scouting in the draft. I know I tweeted out about this last week, that if 100 Thieves is going to see success, it's going to be through having contracts on an aggressive jungler and having Ryoma on the Galio pick. And sure enough, that's exactly what they drafted. There was no bans on the Galio, and then EG got absolutely stomped with it. I don't think that EG had a good draft, but I think that they'll have a lot more focus on their draft going into the series. I think that another reason to not sleep on this team is you've got a lot of experience on this roster. You've got Huni, who's been around forever. Svenskaren's been around forever. Golden Glue forever. Bang forever. Zazel for quite some time. This is not a brand new roster. They are not new to the playoffs by any means. And this is a team that can find multiple ways to win. There's always the Huni carry condition. Now, we know that Huni is kind of coin flip. However, when you're coin flipping, there's a definite chance that he absolutely pops off. So we gotta give respect there. You got the Swole Bros in Svenskeren and Golden Glue, who have shown in the past that they can play and win in the playoffs. That's something they both did on Cloud9. You saw Svenskeren, or pardon me, yeah, it was Svenskeren and Golden Glue jump into the one series where Jensen got benched in the middle of the playoff series, and they ended up winning the series for them. I think that if they want to beat FlyQuest, you have to win early. I mentioned before how FlyQuest, they always get that first blood and they get their advantages early. You cannot give that up against this team if you want to win, because trying to beat FlyQuest, if you're behind in gold and objectives, it's just not going to happen. I would love to see Zazel back on the Alistar pick. He's been great on it for quite some time now. I think it's his best champion. That and Braum, I think, are his best champions. I would love to see him on the Alistar. He's got great engage and great instincts on when to engage on that pick. And then I want to see Golden Glue back on the Zoe. It's probably been his best champion so far this split. We haven't seen a lot of games out of this team, but we have seen some success, especially when those two players are on those two champions. And you have to ban Set against FlyQuest. I was looking at the stats. FlyQuest has played Set 10 times this split. Literally 10 of their 18 games, so more than half of their games, they're picking the Set. 6 of those have been in the top lane on solo, and 4 of them for Santorin in the jungle. So if you want to beat FlyQuest, you got to ban that Set. You got to get an early lead, and I think that EG has the chance to do that. With that said, I don't have them winning this series. I think FlyQuest is the better team. I got JNT's prediction here. He's got FlyQuest beating EG 3-1. I've got them just winning 3-0. I think that I don't want that to seem like I'm putting EG down. I think that they're not that bad of a team. I think they're actually decent. I just think FlyQuest has looked so good lately. Like I said, they've won 6 in a row, and they've looked so clean in doing it. So for that reason, I got them taking the 3-0. Next up, I want to talk about the other teams. Dignitas and 100 Thieves, they are going to be playing this weekend as well. So they are in the losers bracket, as I mentioned before, and they are going to be playing. So Dignitas is waiting to play an opponent on August 15th. That is a Saturday, I believe. That's a Saturday. That's also at 4 p.m. EST, 1 p.m. PST, and they'll be waiting to play. I don't know. I guess the loser of someone in the upper bracket. Um, I guess it says the loser of match 2. So it looks like Dignitas will be playing either TSM or Golden Guardians, and then 100 Thieves will either be playing FlyQuest or EEG. I think I got that right. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but that's the way it seems to be looking right now. um, so I want to talk a little bit about Dignitas and where they've come from the start of the season to where they are now. So with this team, Dignitas had a really rough start to the split. They started 0-8, and they managed to turn that into a 6-13 record, counting the tiebreaker against CLG, by going 6-5 after starting the 0-8. So they were playing above 500 after that awful start and after making a few roster swaps. Now, Dardoch has been coin flip. I've mentioned this many times that I think he's either hit or miss. He's very, very hit or miss, but he's been absolutely popping off lately. We saw him pop off against CLG this past weekend on Olaf, and that was the main reason they won the game against CLG. Now, let's be honest, CLG wasn't putting up much of a fight, and I think most people saw this coming. But regardless, that's something that's looking very good for this team, and I don't think that this is a free team, so to speak, with how they're playing above 500 in the back half of the split. I think Johnson and Afro are the absolute stars of this team. They've looked so solid for the whole split. Even when they were losing games, it wasn't because of their bot lane. So I think Dignitas is really happy with their bot lane. Johnson and Afro definitely stepping up. I am still waiting for Lorlo to get a start, man. I know that it doesn't seem likely. It's been quite a few weeks now since he's been playing in the LCS. But if Lorlo gets a start again and for playoffs, I think this team is better than they are with Viper, and I would actually take them to beat Evil Geniuses if they were playing a series. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Lorlo's going to come back, but yep, still waiting on that one. It was very nice to see Viper get a win on Camille this past weekend. But it took so long. Like I was so happy to see him get a win on a carry champion, because so many times they put him on a carry like Jace or something like that, and it was just very lackluster, and he's always losing lane, he's always behind. It's Johnson and Afro that are trying to carry their top laner. It's unfortunate because I really like this player and I want to see him succeed, but he just hasn't been good. So it was really nice to see him finally get a win and apply some pressure in the split push on the Camille, but I don't think that Dignitas needs a carry in the top lane. I think they need a tank, and that's why I say Lorlo should be starting. Regardless, I don't know what to do with this team as far as predictions go, because first of all, we don't know who they're playing, but also I don't know what Dignitas is going to show up when the time comes. Going to be another really good series to watch. Should be interesting. I would guess in just about most scenarios, depending on who they're playing, I still think that they would lose. I'm not going to try to make a prediction on whether it's going to be a 3-0 or a 3-1 or a 3-2 because we don't know their opponent. But I will just say that I do still have them losing, but I don't think it's as free. Next up, we got 100 Thieves. They're going to be playing the Sunday game, also at 4 p.m. EST, 1 p.m. PST. And the unfortunate thing with this team is that they're still very dependent on Someday to carry, right? Like, this is something we've seen out of them all split long. If they don't have Someday on a carry, the team really struggles to win. Unfortunately, I think that their best comp, as I mentioned before, is when they're playing the Galio with contracts being on something aggressive like the Nidalee or whatnot. And we saw them absolutely destroy Evil Geniuses with the Galio Camille. But I don't think that they're going to get it anymore. To me, it's very clear that this is the only comp that they perform really well on. And I think as soon as you put Ryoma on something that isn't Galio, I think he's going to look a lot weaker. And even in the game that he was playing Zoe, he got caught out again in the mid to late game, and it just gave over an advantage. Like, it's something that happens so often with Ryoma. And I want to see this guy do well, but I can't ignore the mistakes that he continues to make over and over and over again. He continues to get caught out. Unfortunately, I can't say any different for Poom. Poom he's a player everyone's cheering for, right? We want to see this guy succeed too, but we can't ignore his mistakes, and he is also getting caught out. It seems to be the the biggest issue with this 100 Thieves squad is things will be going okay for the early game. They're not too ahead, they're not too behind, and then in the mid to late, they just keep randomly getting picked off and they just throw games. So unfortunate to see that Ryoma and Poom have been doing that. But you can't ignore it, right? And I think that this team is the worst team in playoffs. I think they'll struggle to get a series win. I have them losing in the first series, regardless of who they play. But it has been nice to see them squeak into playoffs. 100 Thieves is an org that you always want to cheer for. They got players that it's easy to cheer for. So hopefully we see 100 Thieves fans get to see them pick up a couple of wins before their season comes to an end. And who knows? Maybe they make a run for it, right? Maybe they do. But that's going to be it for the recap of all the teams. Next up, I want to go on to our classic popping off and bean soup awards. This week for popping off, I got Dignitas making playoffs. Like I said before, this is a team that was 0-8, right? They were struggling to do anything good, and they somehow managed to make it to the playoffs. So really happy for them. Johnson had a great team fight versus 100 Thieves. His Ezreal was looking really good. He was landing freaking every skill shot. And then you got Dardoch, who was 1v9 on the Olaf pick against CLG. Really happy for this team. This team was absolutely popping off. So for good for Dignitas, honestly. I'm really glad that they made playoffs, and I'm interested to see what they can pull out when it comes time for their first playoff series later this week. When it comes to the Bean Soup Award, I feel like we've given so many Bean Soup Awards to CLG this split, but why not another one? Honestly, they decided to make some really weird substitutions that I mentioned earlier. Benching Pobelter made no sense to me. Wiggly, sure, I could see that. He was performing really poorly. There's no reason to take out your best player when you have one weekend left and you're really trying. You just needed one win to scrape your way into playoffs, and they benched him. And then all of a sudden they got a tiebreaker coming up, and they're like, "Oh, let's throw Pobelter back in." Like, if you intended on putting him back in for the tiebreaker game, why didn't he just start in the first place? This makes no freaking sense to me. And this is why, like I said before, you're never happy to see someone get fired, but you definitely know that the coaching staff deserved to be fired on this one. This move makes no freaking sense. And so, bean soup to CLG. That move was bean soup. Their whole season was bean soup. Get these guys out of here. I digress. Moving on, we got to talk about some bets, because I got the bets up already as far as like the odds are up for this upcoming week. We've only got the 2 series up so far, obviously, because we don't know who the other series are going to be. But looking at the bets and the odds for this week, I hesitate to say this, but Golden Guardians has really good odds on this one. I think this is a series that could go either way, as I mentioned. The reason why I'm a little bit hesitant on this one is because, well, last week I predicted Golden Guardians to go 2-0, and I said to take both of their bets, and I did take both of their bets, and I was wrong in both of them. However, those are really, really good odds for what I think is a very even series. I like taking Golden Guardians with the 3-1. If you're looking for something safer, take them plus 1.5 games. The spread is pretty good there. I also like taking the over on the 3.5. The 3.5 games for the series on the right there. The over total being 42 or 43 cents. I guess it's in between. For there to be 4 or more games, I think that it's very likely that this game goes more than 3 games. So I like just about all those picks. I like the Golden Guardians plus 1.5. I like the Golden Guardians straight up to take the series, and I like the over on that series there. As far as the other series is concerned, when I'm looking at the bets, I don't think this is anything too out of the ordinary. I wouldn't be surprised to see FlyQuest take a 3-0, so I don't like the over in those games there. I think FlyQuest is heavily favored, as I mentioned before, and so I think the odds are pretty fair on this one. I would stay away from the FlyQuest EG bets on this one, unless you think, and if you're convinced that Evil Geniuses has a good chance in this series, then I would consider taking them, either the plus 1.5 or the 3-1, but to me, I think that the odds make a lot of sense there, FlyQuest. being the favorite. Now, before we wrap up the show, a little bit of a quicker episode this week as expected, seeing as it's just myself. But I do want to talk about some quick little stories that we're seeing, some little news stories, so to speak, that have been dropped in the LCS and gaming world as of late. So first up, I'm not going to go into much detail on this, guys. We will provide links in the description of the VOD. So go check out the VOD on YouTube if you want to get the links for these little stories here. But first up is Nadeshot. For those that don't know, there was a lot of flack thrown towards 100 Thieves' way about the performances of their teams. And Nadeshot, I think he did a pretty good job. He took it head on and he said, you know what? Yeah, our teams have not looked good right now and we're not happy about it. So he talked a little bit about the League of Legends team. The YouTube channel Esports Talk, by the way, a huge shout out to that YouTube channel. It's fantastic. Esports Talk did a great little coverage on that. Your boy Jake over there covered that. And so I recommend going to see that video, going to check out that video. Not going to talk too much more on that. Basically, the gist of it from what I got is Nadeshot is very aware that their teams aren't performing really well, and they want to perform really well. And they're not satisfied with how the team is doing right now. So definitely not all is well, but they're looking to fix some things. Next up is TL. They got this new reward system. I can't do this justice by trying to explain exactly how this is going to work either. So once again, like I said, there's going to be links in the description of the YouTube VOD. If you want to go check it out, feel free to go do that. He has an interview with Travis Gafford where he explains the reward system. Just a little short explanation of what it seems like to me is it seems like what you're going to do is you're going to be able to earn rewards for watching Team Liquid content, whether that be their League of Legends team, whether that be their YouTube channel, I'm not sure, whether that be their CS teams or any of their esports. It looks like you can gain some sort of rewards or some points that you can cash in later. I remember seeing in the video or in the interview that he did with Travis Gafford, it seems like you can maybe use some of those rewards to buy RP. If you're a League of Legends player, if you watch their Fortnite content, you can use it for V-Bucks. I'm not too sure exactly what it is, but it does sound pretty interesting. And I believe that launches today as this is being recorded. For those listening later, this is being recorded on August 11th. So yeah, if you're listening right now, it's live. That's that little reward system. So feel free to go check that out. Again, that'll be in the description. Next up, we got FlyQuest. They got some new playoff jerseys that they announced. So that's pretty cool. But more importantly, in the same announcement, they announced that they're going to be doubling down on their coral reef donations. I don't know if that's the actual name of the charity, but we do know. Let's say for those that don't know, all split long, they've been doing what they call the Sea Quest, where basically it's like their winds and their ocean dragons that they get in game go towards donations towards the coral reef or something like that to save the ocean. I can't pretend to be an expert on the subject, but they are doubling down. So I don't remember what it was. If it was, let's say hypothetically, it was $100 for an ocean dragon. Now it's going to be $200 for an ocean dragon and that kind of stuff. And what I do know from the announcement is that for every series win, they're going to add another $1,000 to that donation. So really cool to see FlyQuest taking a total new approach to branding in the LCS. So pretty cool to see that. And last, the LCS has a new partner this week. Just announced today, I believe. Buffalo Wild Wings is going to be a partner of the LCS. It's a multi-year deal. They didn't give too many specifics, but it seems like they're going to be the exclusive sports bar of the LCS, and so that's something that's really cool. I really highly recommend you go check out. It's not a very long read. It's just 1 or 2 paragraphs where they explain what that partnership is going to look like. But we can come to expect Buffalo Wild Wings sponsorship content in the future, and I think in there they mentioned some merchandise, perhaps. Don't quote me on that one, but definitely go check that out. And once again, that link will be in the description. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you so much for those that are active in the live chat, and thank you to those that comment please, I would love to hear your guys' opinion. And if you guys think that there's anything that I'm straight up wrong about, I want to hear it. I want to see what you guys think. So please do leave comments in the YouTube comment section. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, I've been doing my best to be a lot more active on Twitter. So you can see it on the screen if you're watching live right now. That's BlueJay_GG. I'm going to continue to try to be as active as possible and keep pumping out a lot of different tweets, especially during the LCS. I'm going to keep doing my best to do that. And for those that don't know, or maybe you only caught half of the live show, go check out our YouTube channel. It's the Clown Fiesta podcast on YouTube. You shouldn't have too much of an issue finding it there. I do believe it's in the About Us or whatever part in the Twitch stream, so it's in there. And for those that are listening to the YouTube version or on Spotify, we do want to try to get more of you guys to the live show. We would love to have a larger live audience. So please do your best to come drop us a follow, and that'll be at twitch.tv/Clown Fiesta Podcast. And one last shout out, guys. Andrew is the one that's running the stream today. For those that don't know Andrew, he's the Vampire. He's sometimes in chat. We wouldn't be able to do this week's episode without him. And so, honestly, a huge shout out to him. He's the one that's doing all the different transitions for this episode. So, honestly, we're fucked without him. So, huge shout out to Andrew. Thanks a lot, Andrew. And the only other thing that I do want to say is next week we should be on at the same time, our regular schedule. We expect JNT to be back. If he is not, or if the schedule is different, you will hear about it through my Twitter. I will announce something, or through his Twitter. I think it's _Tuminator, or at _Tuminator, if I'm not mistaken. We will be announcing if there's anything out of the ordinary. If you don't hear from us, the live show will be at 9 p.m. EST right here on the Twitch channel. Thank you guys so much for being active and for supporting the channel, supporting the podcast. It really means a lot to us. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. So thanks a lot, guys.